Mr. Panovich, are you going to be ready pretty quick? Are you present? You're okay? Your seat's okay? Just wanted to check, make sure. We'll be starting in about a minute and a half, ladies and gentlemen. I've got a little request. I've got the witness will be up here, and I need these people in the chairs over here. Got some chairs out here for y'all. The witness will need some of his support team behind him, so we're going to move you, and we got your place over here to sit, if you don't mind. Reese, would you take care of that, please, over here? And thank y'all very much for your consideration there. I appreciate it. Before we convene, ladies and gentlemen, let me establish some ground rules, if I may. We're delighted to see as many people here as there are, and there'll probably be more coming, and we appreciate it very much. I ask you, if you haven't by now, to silence your cell phones, and I better do mine while I'm talking about it, and I just did mine, so y'all take care of yours. And the schedule that I plan to run today is that, if possible, I'm going to break for lunch at 11:30. That gets a little ahead of the mass 12 o'clock in the dining room or the cafeteria here, and then there's also a cafeteria break room in the other building over there, if necessary. It'll be for 45 minutes, and we'll try to break it probably at 11:30 and be back in place at 12:15. And it's my intentions to stop no later than 5 o'clock today. And I'm not doing it for the benefit of the commissioners or you. I'm doing it for the benefit of our court recorder, because they have to put together everything that's said here today and work around that. So it's very important that they not have to work till 6 in the morning and get it back out, so that all the interveners can have the information that was said today for their testimony or their cross-examinations the next day. So be sure to be aware of that. Also, that as always, interveners, I want you to listen very well to the witness and try not to repeat questions that have already been asked and answered by the witness. If you need to set a stage for a follow-up question, I might be a little bit lenient on that. But if you don't remember that, I will help you remember it if I possibly can. We're going to have some public witnesses, and then we'll have, I'll announce that when we start that. But anybody have any questions before we come to order? Commissioners or anybody in the audience to have any questions? And I appreciate very much the men in blue here. They will assist me if I need it. And so y'all understand that very much. And if no questions, then we will come to order. This is September the 30th, Georgia Public Service Commission, and we'll be entertaining docket number 42516. This is the Georgia Powers 2019 rate case. May I call for appearances, please? Georgia Public Service Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of the Public Interest Advocacy staff, I'm Daniel Walsh with the Attorney General's Office, and with me today is Jeffrey Stair and Preston Thomas with the Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Georgia Power Company.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kevin Green, Brandon Marzo, and Steve Hewitson for Georgia Power Company.
Thank you. City of Atlanta. Thank you. Commercial Group. Do you hear these all good, ma'am? Okay, y'all speak up. Concerned ratepayers of Georgia.
Steve Branovich, Concerned Ratepayers of Georgia.
Thank you. Georgia Association of Manufacturers.
Clay Jones on behalf of GAM.
Thank you. Georgia Industrial Group. Okay. Georgia Interfaith Power and Light.
Kurt Ebersbach and Jillian Kaiser on behalf of Kimball and also South Basin Vote Solar.
Thank you. Georgia Solar Industries. You're popular, aren't you, Mr. Galloway? Yeah. Georgia Restaurant Association.
Mr. Chairman, Gary McGuire from GRA.
Thank you. Georgia Watch. Did you get that? All right. Kroger Company. Kroger Company. No response. Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority. Baker. Resource Supply Management. Thank you, sir. Sarah Club.
Morning, Commissioner. Robert Jackson, Jordan Jaffe, Zachary Babish.
Thank you. United States Department of Defense and all other federal agencies.
Good morning, Emily Medlin on behalf of the
Did you get that? Okay. Very good. All right. Georgia Powell, will you call your witness, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, at this time I'd call Mr. Paul Bowers as Georgia Power Company's first witness. And as Mr. Bowers is coming to the stand or to the witness box, I'd note for the record that Georgia Power Company has filed notice of this hearing by publication as required by the Commission rules. Mr. Bowers, before you're seated, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you. You may be seated. Mr. Bowers, for the benefit of the record, would you begin by please stating your full name, your employer, and your responsibilities?
William Paul Bowers, Georgia Power Company. I'm Chairman, President, CEO.
On June 28th of this year, did you pre-file or cause to be pre-filed 15 pages of direct testimony which was set out in question and answer format for purposes of this case?
I did.
Did you pre-file any exhibits along with that testimony?
No.
Are there any corrections that you need to make to that pre-filed testimony?
No.
If I were to ask you the same questions here today while you're under oath, would your answers be the same as were set forth in that pre-filed testimony?
Yes, they would be.
Mr. Chairman, the court reporter has previously been given a copy of Mr. Bowers' testimony, and I'd ask at this time that it be copied into the record as if it were given here today, subject to cross-examination.
It will be copied.
Mr. Bowers, do you have a summary of your testimony?
I do.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd ask Mr. Bowers to summarize his testimony, please.
Mr. Bowers, would you proceed, please? Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, and good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Be sure and talk close to that microphone so everybody in the back can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Again, thank you, and good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. The purpose of my testimony is to introduce and provide an overview of Georgia Power's 2019 rate case filing. As you know, we were required to file a base rate case on or before July 2nd, 2019, under an agreement made with this commission in 2016. It has been 6 years since our last rate case, and our proposal today is to continue the alternative rate plan framework, which has served our customers well for over 20 years. Almost 10 years ago, I first sat in the office of my predecessors, where an old Georgia Power emblem hung on the wall behind the desk, inscribed with the words, "A citizen wherever we serve." That emblem still hangs there today, and it is a constant reminder that we have an obligation and a commitment to the people of Georgia and to each of our 2.6 million customers to provide superior customer service, offer competitive prices, and be a good steward of the environment. Our ability to fulfill those commitments has been made possible because this commission has been on the forefront of sound, constructive regulatory policies that have led to a stable regulatory environment for our customers we serve, helping establish Georgia as the best state in which to do business. Your policies have given other businesses and industries the confidence to locate in our state and have given investors the confidence to provide the capital necessary to finance the infrastructure that is required now and in the future. Those policies have also allowed Georgia Power to deliver clean, safe, reliable, and affordable energy, which is one of the cornerstones of Georgia's economy and well-being. Our goal has not changed, nor will it change in the future. We strive to be excellent in all we do for our customers. Operating a large, complex utility, we must have every member of our team focus on one clear objective: superior customer service in all aspects of our business. From customer interactions to operating our networks and our plants efficiently, we strive to put safety of our teams and our customers first and to serve communities across the state with the highest standards of reliability and responsiveness. The results speak for themselves. Our safety performance has improved 29% over the last 5 years, and our customer service levels continue to be among the best in the industry. In fact, since 2013, Georgia Power has been consistently recognized by J.D. Power for excellence in customer service and customer satisfaction. We have already been ranked number 1 this year in 2019 by the Electric Utility Residential Customer Satisfaction Study for large utilities in the South. And in 2018, we were ranked number 1 for both electric utility business and residential customer satisfaction. As our customer base has grown by more than 180,000 customers since 2013, so have their expectations. We have worked to continuously evolve our programs and services as their energy needs have also evolved. We are offering a wide variety of rate options that fit our customers' lifestyles and help them use our product more efficiently. While we have successfully launched many new customer options over the years, we still have some rate design structures that are several decades old. So as part of this request, we are also seeking to modernize our rates and expand options for our customers, such as adding a new pay-by-day option and expanding our existing flat bill rate plan. We operate our fossil plants better than anyone in the industry, and our men and women who run our plants are truly champions in ensuring our plants are running when we need them the most. Our overall fuel diversity enables us to dispatch the generation fleet efficiently while also optimizing operations to ensure reliable and affordable energy for the customers every day. Even as our plants have been challenged to balance integrating complex environmental controls into operating these units, we are efficiently operating the fleet to meet our customers' needs. This year has been the best year in our history for availability despite one of the hottest summers on record. However, at the same time, our aging hydro system is showing signs of needed investments, with performance below expectations. In fact, even though the megawatts produced through hydro generation are not large, they, along with nuclear and solar, are emission-free and are our cheapest fuel source. Therefore, these hydro units must be available when called upon. From an environmental standpoint, Georgia Power has and will continue to meet its environmental compliance obligations in a cost-effective manner. We are working every day to protect public safety by ensuring compliance with all state and federal environmental requirements for both air and water. This has and will require significant investments. Since 2013, we have invested approximately $2 billion in environmental compliance program as directed by Georgia EPD and the U.S. EPA. In total, we have invested approximately $6 billion on all environmental controls. Our results have shown that these investments have met the desired outcomes, resulting in emission reductions of nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide, and mercury by over 90%. Our next investment obligation is the compliance costs required for coal combustion residuals, or coal ash, and the closing of all 29 ash ponds in Georgia. Our wire infrastructure has also been tested over the past several years with historic hurricanes, ice storms, and other extreme weather conditions, including direct hurricane strikes in each of the last 3 years from Hurricanes Matthew, Irma, and Michael, impacting the company's network and nearly all our customers. These storms created approximately $450 million in restoration costs not currently covered in rates. Through all these tough conditions, the network performed well, but our line personnel performed even better. They are the best in the industry. Even as we responded to extreme conditions, we have areas under normal conditions where the aging infrastructure serving our customers must be modernized. That's why we're making significant investments in the network to make it more resilient, to reduce outage times. We have invested more than $4.1 billion in expanding our transmission and distribution infrastructure, strengthening the reliability and the resilience of the electric grid, and we also plan to invest another $1.3 billion in a grid investment plan over the next 3 years. In addition, our system must adapt to the energy produced from the renewables that have and will be added to our portfolio. These intermittent resources require a system that can handle the production profile of a solar field or a community solar installation while being resilient to the voltage variances. Overall, our business is run extremely well. We have an intense focus on efficiency and delivering the service customers expect from their energy provider. In fact, Georgia Power's rates are 16% below the national average. While we have proactively taken steps to manage costs and improve efficiency, it has been 6 years since our last rate case, and our current rates are no longer sufficient to cover the cost of the business. Georgia Power has invested $8.7 billion since 2013 to strengthen the reliability and the resilience of the state's electrical system, our energy production facilities, and to comply with state and federal laws. These investments, along with our projected forecast of cost, are not yet reflected in our rates and are not completely offset by the substantial savings we have achieved since 2013. Our case, in summary, is about continuing a framework that has served our customers well by keeping rates low and providing the highest quality of service and allowing a reasonable recovery of infrastructure investment, environmental compliance costs, and storm restoration costs, while providing customers the benefit of the Tax Reform Act. To ensure we are able to meet these objectives for Georgia, our company must sustain the financial integrity that this commission has always allowed. This request seeks to reset our rates to a level sufficient to allow us to provide our customers with clean, safe, reliable, and affordable energy and the superior customer service they expect, which we are committed to deliver. In addition to my testimony, you will hear from 6 other panels throughout these hearings, including an internal and external subject matter experts. These panels will discuss the details of our revenue requirements, our cost of equity, credit quality evaluation, Georgia Power's cost of service structure, as well as rate design trends around the industry and our rate design proposals in this case. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. That concludes my summary.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bowers is available for questions from the bench. I understand that before he's cross-examined by parties, you will take public comments. I would ask whether or not you would allow Mr. Bowers to be excused during the public comment phase, excused from the witness stand, not from the hearings, of course, and not from recall subject to the chairman.
I will allow that,
All right.
subject to the call of the chair.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. He will be close by. Be right back when you call him. And does the bench have any questions for him before he goes, or we hold those until...
Commissioners?
I have a question.
Thank you.
Mr. Bowers. For the last several years, I've relayed to you all the complaint from customers about the convenience fee that they were charged at remote payment locations like Walmart, Dollar General, Kroger, even though most of the offices were closed and folks could no longer make a payment at an office. And I'm very pleased to see that in this rate case that fee is gone. And I wanted to know what factors went into your decision to remove the fee.
Well, Commissioner, I'm glad you recognize the move by the company to remove the $1.50 fee that's out there. I think the feedback we get from our customers specifically and the transactions that they were taking at the alternative payment locations really illuminated the issue that we need to resolve, and that's why we're proposing to eliminate that fee going forward.
And one more question about the prepay program. I know that was another concern I had. You all did a pilot initially, and then you've launched it fully. And is it true that our customers, and I think it's 60,000 or more, that they're saving about 10% on their monthly bill over and against what they had just getting a one-time bill at the end of the month?
That's exactly right, Commissioner. It is 60+ thousand customers that are involved in the prepay, and they are seeing the savings of about 10%. But they are also the customers that go through the transaction cost, and they usually have 4 transactions per month, which is about $6. We've seen some as many as 8 transactions per month. So that elimination of that fee does help them considerably.
I'd like to ask you all to consider promoting this rate more in your advertising, because these customers don't have to spend anything to save money. And it just seems like a great program that we really need to be marketing more. And I don't hear any advertisements about it on sports programming or anything else, ads, and I'd love to see you do more advertising on it.
Commissioner, we'll take that under advisement, and I guarantee we will do it.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? All right, the witness may be relaxed at this time. We have almost 30 public witnesses this morning, and the way we're going to do it is I have about 9 public witnesses that will only use 3 minutes per time, and then I've got about 15 that will use a 5-minute. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call 3 witnesses at a time. I want you to use this center aisle in front of behind the podium here. When I call your name, number 1, you will come to the podium. Number 2 will pause behind the chairs, and number 3 behind the number 2. And I'm going to work that way. As when witness number 1 is through, I will call another witness that will position him or herself back there. Now, the 3-minute witnesses will have 3 minutes. And I want you to make sure that you understand it's 3 minutes. There'll be a time on the up here Mr. Commissioner Eccles has a timer here that he'll put up here. There'll also be an orange flag that will come up when you have 30 seconds left. And there'll be a red flag come up when your time's up. And I'm going to ask you politely now to respond to the red flag. That means you're through. Now, and that includes the people that have 5-minute witnesses. Now, if you don't respond like the request, I've got some folks here that will help you respond back to your seat or back to the front door at the sidewalk. So we're going to move this thing methodically. I'm going to give you all the respect in the world, but I want you to respect what we've got in front of us for the next 3 days at least in here. So is there any question anybody has about that? Overruled if there is. Thank you very much, and we will now call for our first public witnesses, and I'm going to use last names because I can't pronounce some of the first names honestly, and I don't know whether it's a Ms. or a Mr., so I'll use the last names, and Spivey, Woods, and Lindsay in that order. Spivey first, Lindsay, and then, Woods, and then Lindsay. Y'all come up and get in line. This is what we're going to move. We're going to make it go. Where's number 3? Lindsay. Okay, where's Woods? Okay, right here. Very good. Mr. Spivey, you're on, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners, distinguished guests. My name's Mark Spivey, and I'm Assistant Business Manager with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 84, here in Georgia. I am taking the place, or pinch hitting, so to speak, for our 5th District Vice President, Brian Thompson. So he got sick yesterday and was unable to attend, and he sends his regrets. So I'm going to be taking his place, so if you'll bear with me, I'm going to read some of his comments. The 5th District, which encompasses Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, Panama Canal, Puerto Rico, and the Caribbean islands. The purpose of these remarks is simple, and is to highlight the untold story of labor and the value it adds to the success of Georgia. There are 2 elements of the rate case that has been filed with you where labor not only has a direct interest, but indeed is the implementer. Specifically, infrastructure, investment, and storm accounts. Infrastructure first. In a modern society, we are asking more of electrical grid than ever before. While once an interruption in service was an inconvenience and an excuse to get out of the game of Monopoly, today, everything is electrified. City lights, traffic controllers, operating rooms, manufacturing floors, and various operations of internet all rely on power available and precise power quality. Commissioners, allow me to introduce you to the linemen on the front lines of that effort. Georgia Power has significantly investing in transmission and distribution upgrades to ensure the energy that activates all things in our economy. And we should all be glad that they are. I want to be clear, however, that is the team behind me and many more like them that have been doing that work. Not always in the best conditions. It's just simply what they do. That is the value labor adds into operating of a modern economy. But all those hours worked in equipment, technology, transmission towers, and refinements and improvements came at a cost. The crews that are doing work and are willing to do it are willing to keep doing it. I can promise you that. They just ask, and I just ask, that you invest in them and the success of Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Spivey.
Thank you.
You know, if I could just say something, Mr. Spivey, just want to thank you and the other members of the IBEW for coming today. And, you know, I heard Mr. Bowers say there's been a significant drop in injuries, and I'm sure a lot of that has to do with a lot of your union members and the training and the commitment to professionalism you have on the job. I've seen firsthand how your members, beyond the training, self-regulate that, and they'll call somebody out if they see them operating in an unsafe manner. And just wanted to thank you for that.
Okay, that's correct. We do team together to help be safe, help everyone be safe.
And when your members are called to other states to help with a catastrophe or whatever, you're the first call, and they ask you to be the last to leave. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Spivey. Gloria Woods and Lindsay is on deck.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Gloria Woods, and after 20 years of working with the City of Atlanta and a cancer survivor, I find myself in a monthly dilemma of whether to pay bills or pay for my medicine. As an investor, I understand business for profit. But $3.5 billion profit? I just want you to think about that for a second. $3.5 billion in profit. Georgia Power, like so much of this country, is out of touch with the consumers. Their children's children will be able to benefit from my struggle. As a member of one of the oldest Golden Age clubs in the city of Atlanta, the rate increase will cripple our community. We ask that you set aside any relationship that you might have with Georgia Power and do what is right. We count on you. We will remember. Are there any questions? Now, I set a new record for being brief.
Thank you, Ms. Woods.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lindsay and Mr. Hanson on deck. Hanson and Spinks, take your place. Mr. Lindsay, go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm appearing as a private citizen, and I think it's very important that we have the opportunity to speak because of the monopoly situation of Georgia Power. As a householder, I shop around for the best economy I can, and I was surprised when moving here 60 years ago to find that Georgia Power was the only provider, and any other options, as you know, as far as choosing another billing company or whatever, was adding an extra cost. And as a family, we've done everything we can to economise, to reduce our environmental impact, and putting in LED lights and all those kind of things, and following all the recommendations of Georgia Power. But if, as I understand it, the proposal is to introduce a base charge that is higher than what's already paid, regardless of whatever actions we take to reduce our power use, then that's an unfair burden on people who have no other choice. We can't go to another power company and shop for a better deal. We have to accept what Georgia Power is given permission to charge us. So for that reason, I think the Commission should really look carefully at allowing people to pay for their use and not be charged a base charge regardless of how little or how much power they use. Thank you.
Thank you. Hanson and Strong on deck. Take place, Strong.
How are you doing? My name is Taryn Hanson. I am from Savannah.
Speak closer to that microphone, please.
How are you doing? My name is Taryn Hanson. I am a resident of Savannah, Georgia. I would like to speak on behalf of myself as well as the communities I serve. I would like to thank y'all for making this for senior citizens, $14 off. However, I am an independent contractor, independent broker, and I just started with Medicare, selling Medicare policies and supplements. $14 is just not enough for clients, as well as even for myself, starting a new business, going from making $60,000 to making nothing from starting over, and having a child as well. A mandatory fee, like I'm not even at home and I don't even turn my lights on, but my bill is going to go up. It's just unfair. I'm trying to start another business, as well as I'm going to need Georgia Power at a building if I was to have an office. That's going to go up. So it's like, as an American, starting from the bottom, all of these rate hikes and everything, it just sets you back as a spiral. It's just a spiral effect where everything's increasing, but then the minimum wage is still the same. Everyone, you can say that, yes, it's the lowest in the country, but at the same, one of the lowest utility rates in the country, but at the same time, we have the lowest minimum wage. We have the lowest in education. We rank the lowest in everything because we pay so much out of our pockets for just these little bitty, little nicks and crannies for everything we do. Not only Georgia Power, but our water bill, our cable bill, everything's expensive, but then we're not getting an increase in income. So it just makes constituents at a point where even if I'm doing good, the person next to me is not doing good. The communities I serve are not doing good. Even if I live in a great neighborhood, the neighborhood 2 doors down is not doing good. So those people become savages. They can't get a good job. They can't eat. They can't do this. They're sitting at the table like, what can we do? We can't put our kids in these after-school programs because we don't have money to even afford the utilities. So now what are we doing for the kids coming up after us? And I'm just saying, like, we've been hit with hurricane after hurricane. We do want to appreciate you all for coming out, making sure that we do have power and doing whatever you can. But not only when a hurricane hits, we're losing food. We're losing pay. These people aren't getting paid when things aren't going right. So I'm just here to say the rate hike is a lot because $1 over for someone on a fixed income is $1 too much. That's all I got to say.
Thank
And,
you.
just so you know, I've collected signatures from people who in the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Spinks and Ms. Strong on deck. Strong on deck. And then Fox.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Edwina Spinks, and I'm a proud citizen here in Fulton County, living here in Atlanta. And I am also proud to be retired and want to stay retired, okay? I've worked my years in, and I've served my time, and I am on a fixed income. As I have dwelled in the communities for the last couple of weeks, speaking to them about the situation of an increase of the power, I hear these comments: what is next? What am I going to do? I can't afford an increase in anything else. A lot of people are grumbling about the increase of taxes on their property. Well, that's another meeting at another time. But I'm here to represent the community that I have been speaking with. The people are unemployed or underemployed. The income and their salaries are not about to increase like mine is set. When the time I started working, my retirement funds were set. The thing I'm going to do is give you food for thought when you're in your private meetings and getting ready to negotiate what you're going to do about this increase. Well, I'm going to take you back simply. You go to the book of Genesis, and in that book it said God created the heavens and the earth. When he created the heavens and earth, he knew exactly how many people that was going to be on this earth during the duration of this time. And then I went into research to find out what is the natural resources that he gave unto us free to be able to form energy. I thank Georgia Power and all the electrical companies that had used their senses that God had given them to make it so that we can use common things as coal, as we could use common things as the sun, as we could use the things that was given to us as steam that you need, where that steam comes from water. And you took those things and you created ways of creating electricity to be used in our private uses. I thank you. Now, the thing is, if God sent a bill to you all once a month for the sun, the water, and coal, would you be able to pay the bill? Think about that. Now the thing is, also, the thing is that when things are on an increase, all things need to be considered. Every person needs to be considered. And I'm just asking that you all will go in your private closets and pray about all things before you react. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Spinks. Strong, Fox, and Fox.
Okay, that's a tough one to follow. My name is Zuleika Strong. I am a representative of the Copper Development Association. We are a trade association that represents the entire copper supply chain, from miner all the way down to fabricator of wire and cable markets. I am here to represent the association on behalf of a number of different members that we have, including Southwire, which has over 2,000 employees in the state. From our perspective, we see the investments in these markets and the infrastructure as a huge, important ancillary benefit to our industry. We are here, I am here as a representative of the association to let you know what that means for us. When you look at all of these infrastructure investments, as all of these new emerging technologies and renewable resources and EVs, you're looking at a huge benefit that comes even to our industry. We've got about 5.5 tons of copper per megawatt in solar and wind installations versus fossil fuels. 4 times the amount of copper in electric vehicles, never mind all of that infrastructure investment that needs to be made on behalf of facilitating the growth in the industry. I'm here to tell you that our industry benefits. Our industry benefits from the investments that are made by a lot of these utilities. We hope, and change is hard, and we hope that those investments create jobs for the state of Georgia and continue the growth and help with our national clean energy plan as we transition. And I'm just here to give you our voice. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Fox.
Hello,
And then on deck would be Allison.
I'm Emmy Fox. I come before this commission today to discuss a potential disservice to the state of Georgia in general and Chatham County in particular. In a report issued in May this year by the Chatham County Housing Coalition, 35% of Chatham County's 107,427 households are already paying over 30% of their income in rent alone. This means that for a one-bedroom, 500-square-foot apartment, a person needs to make $16.70 an hour to be able to pay rent at 30% income, along with everything else that one has to pay, especially utilities. Georgia Power is now coming before you to ask this company to allow them to raise the rate of our power to one of the highest in the nation. According to their website, as well as Pacific Light and Gas of California, our current bill rate is side by side with California's electric bill. By the way, their minimum wage in California is $12 an hour. All of this is being asked for to offset expenses due to hurricanes and storms. As a business owner, I know that expenses are not calculated after profit, but before. So Southern Company, which is parent of Georgia Power, made over $3 billion with a B dollars in profit. If allowed, this bill is going to cost the state and its communities, as well as the company, dearly as businesses leave to this increased expense. Nonprofits will have to close because they cannot afford the increased strain on their resources. 17.3% of Chatham County at or below the poverty rate, as well as those of the rest of Georgia, will be struggling even more to pay a bill that they can barely afford now, if indeed they can afford it at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Fox? And then we have Alliston on deck.
All right, thank you. My name is Kenneth Fox, and to follow up on Mrs. Fox's reports, these are hard numbers on Data USA, which is an online site. Chatham County has a population of 290,501, a poverty rate of 17.3%, and an unemployment rate of 25.4%. This means that people cannot afford to pay everything they have to pay. Churches are relied upon to assist in this burden, but if this hike is approved, this is what it means for our communities. Businesses will move out of the area as the choice becomes drastic price increase or move. Loss of tax revenue as people lose jobs these companies provide or move with the company. Increase in local cost of living as the spiral continues. Even more loss of business and tax revenue, and local recession to depressions in the economy. The rate hike as proposed is completely unreasonable. If you can post a $3.17 billion profit, and that is after all expenses, then you do not need to increase the power bill to the highest in the nation. These are all numbers that can be found online. And for clarification, to recoup $2 billion in 3 years from customers, Southern Company would only need to increase each customer's bill by $6.22 per month in that same time frame. And those numbers are calculated by the numbers given online rather than the customer count here, which is a very drastic difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Allison?
Good morning. I'm Yolanda Brown, Alston, and I traveled here from Savannah, Georgia, to speak at this hearing concerning the hike. As a Georgia Power customer, I'm already feeling the effects of the hike that has already affected low-income, set-income, poverty living areas, mostly African American, Latinos, all nationalities. Georgia Power customer, we have already, as a Georgia Power residential customer, the experience of the hike affects us as vital on our daily living for single working, non-working, with family and children in school. We rob Peter to pay Paul, still leaving some people to be in the dark. Don't hike, reduce the rates.
Thank you. Gail? And then Morris on deck. Jeanette? And then Morris on deck.
All right. Good morning, Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, Commission. My name is Jeanette Gare. I'm the Director of Environment Georgia. We're a statewide nonprofit that works to protect Georgia's air, water, and green spaces. And I certainly share deep concerns about the proposed fee hike, flat fee hike, with some of the folks that are here today, but I actually wanted to talk mostly about the issue of coal ash. So in addition to being the Director of Environment Georgia, I'm also the chair of the Georgia Water Coalition's Coal Ash Committee, which is a coalition of over 250 organizations around the state that are concerned with the quality of Georgia's water. I came before y'all during the IRP hearing and shared concern about the $7.6 billion that was being proposed for coal ash cleanup. The biggest concern that I shared was we know right now that there is coal ash toxins from coal ash leaching into groundwater. I brought the report that I referenced last time to share with y'all. But 10 of the 12 plants in the state right now we know have toxins like arsenic, lead, et cetera, in the groundwater around the coal ash ponds. I know in this rate case, y'all are being asked to consider about $500 million over the next 3 years to begin cleanup plans. And I wanted to raise two major flags. The first very basic one is ratepayers should not be required to foot the bill for coal ash cleanup, especially when we know that coal ash comes with a value. In addition to that report that shared the contamination issues, I also wanted to bring a report that was commissioned in Virginia. They have a big coal ash issue as well at Dominion Power, and they looked at the difference between building reuse facilities and then building landfills to store coal ash. And they found that there was a $15 million benefit if you go forward with reuse. So I'm worried that we're going to ask ratepayers right now to foot the bill for coal ash cleanup. And then in the future, Georgia Power will sell that coal ash and ratepayers will see none of that money. The second big flag I wanted to raise is we're very concerned that this cleanup is not going to be sufficient. So there's no clear evidence that liners will be required under all of this coal ash. Some of this coal ash is sitting in groundwater, and that means that the coal ash will continue to leach. So I fear that what will happen is we will do a bad job cleaning up, pay $500 million right now, and have to come back and pay a lot more. I don't think that's fair for ratepayers as a ratepayer myself. So urge you to certainly consider those two flags moving forward. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Oh, can I pass these reports off to you? Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Gaya.
Thank you.
Morris, Justin Morris.
Hi, the woman before me did a much better job saying the same thing I'm about to say. So let's go from this way.
Be careful with that mic, please.
Yeah, no problem. So 500 million,
it'll stand up
500
there
million
itself. Thank you.
will be spent on our money, but in 2023 for coal ash cleanup. There's not even lining, there's not capping. The SELC, Southern Environmental Law Center, has said it's reckless. They're breaking the law. They are not following procedures to act properly, put coal ash away. And on top of that, they aren't even good at doing coal power. As previously stated, the Netherlands uses coal ash to recycle it, to make money off of it. But the best they can do is throw it away. And as she said previously, they're probably just going to resell it after we were the ones footing the bill. On top of that, it doesn't really matter about the convenience fee being really cut out when we're having to pay for a higher price. And on top of that, the 10% cut matters even less if we're going to have to be boiling our water to clean up the coal that's contaminating our pipes. And on top of that, I'm going to be paying healthcare bills for the cancer provided by this company if they're going to let it leak into the water. Within the last year, they've already been in trouble for letting coal ash leak into the water. And why is it going to change now? They don't care. They're moving at a sluggish pace. Yeah. And on top of that, I haven't been here since April, and nothing has really changed much other than putting out a redacted report on the IRP, but they are forcing us into this non-consensual agreement, but not even giving us simple things like price values, which is honestly something you can provide. It's not the Mueller report. We have 10% of the report was redacted. That's only 1% less than the Mueller report. It's completely stupid when you're making 10 million people obligated to paying these bills. And on top of that, we have the largest solar plant in the U.S. From Korea in Dalton, and they are providing more jobs for Americans than we are in a less amount of time. 500 jobs. And on top of that, the people who get those solar panels first are people who are Silicon Valley companies like Facebook for their data center in Newton, Georgia, and the military. Average day consumers, people who are forced to pay these bills, are not even getting the solar panels. So I don't see why a company that currently put our president in place, who is a climate denier, who's in impeachment investigation, is getting these solar panels before anyone else. So you guys have 31 years to hit your low to no greenhouse emissions, and at the rate they're going, to hit 2.6 million people to have clean energy in 20 years, that's only 1/5 of the population of right now. So you're lagging behind, you're not providing any solar panels to people who actually need it. You're just suffocating us slowly, and it doesn't really matter about being the #1 in clean energy, as Georgia Power keeps bragging about. It's like being the fastest turtle, but we're going to be choked to death by a fast approaching rabbit. This is all dumb. I shouldn't have to be here. I want to go back to my job. Thank you for letting me speak here, and y'all have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Mr. Cody Ross, and Reese. Mr. Cody first, then Ross, and then Christine. Is it Reese, R-I-E-S? Ma'am? Reese, okay. Mr. Cody, you're on. Is it Cody or Cody?
Cody.
All right.
Cody. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jimmy Cody. I'm the Executive Director of the Georgia Ready Mix Concrete Association. Our association is the sole trade association representing Georgia's ready mix concrete industry along with various industry stakeholders. I thought I was done it for 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Okay. Amongst our membership includes Georgia Power, who provides our members with not only electricity necessary to power manufacturing facilities, but an ingredient that has become critical to the quality of concrete that is produced and sold in Georgia every single day. And of course, I'm speaking of fly ash. We're well aware of the poor reputation fly ash has in environmental circles, but we can assure you that it has incredibly positive attributes for concrete manufacturing. Concrete mix designs that include fly ash are essentially the standard in today's markets and are highly desirable for several reasons. Concrete mixed with fly ash provides for greater long-term strength and durability, is more pumpable, and has better finishing qualities. It greatly aids in our industry sustainability efforts, and by the way, it makes for cheaper concrete. Fly ash is referred to as a supplementary cementitious material. That is to say, we can remove cement content from our concrete mixes, replace it with fly ash, and not only maintain the quality of the concrete, but actually improve it. The Georgia Department of Transportation specifies concrete mix designs for our members, which include fly ash. GDOT is responsible for building and maintaining our transportation network and seek to maximize the life cycle of its structures for good reason. We assume that the bridges we crossed to get here this morning were not going to fail, that they would be constructed in a manner which provides safe passage with the greatest strength, durability, and longevity possible. In small part, we can thank fly ash for that. Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport continues to maintain its status as the world's busiest airport. We have expanded in recent years with new runways. Did you know that the FAA will not permit any concrete to be poured on new or existing runways that do not contain fly ash? Imagine the punishment the runways must take with all the commercial airlines departing and landing on a daily basis. The FAA knows it needs the most durable concrete it can get, so it knows it needs fly ash. In the construction process, the physical characteristics of the ash particles make concrete more user-friendly. Under a microscope, the ash particles are rounded. It allows for a smoother and more workable finish for contractors. It eliminates the need to add water on jobs, which would only serve to weaken the final strengths. In addition, the concrete has to be pumped on jobs such as high-rises as construction goes vertical. These physical properties allow for concrete to be more easily pumped, thus allowing for more consistent strengths and finishes even at a higher level. Fly ash also provides a substantial CO2 offset in concrete manufacturing. Generally speaking, a ton of fly ash used in concrete manufacturing replaces a ton of CO2 emissions generated by cement manufacturing facilities. Cement plants are amongst the world's worst offenders in CO2 emissions, and by including fly ash in our mixes, we are reducing the strain on these cement plants. Fly ash in concrete is also encapsulated for eternity, essentially providing the safest means possible of disposal where it can do no harm to the environment. When you purchase ready-mix concrete, the price of that concrete is mostly driven by the price of cement. The more cement there is in a concrete mix, the more expensive it will be. Today's concrete mixes can replace upwards of 30% of the cement content with fly ash. This equates to substantial savings for consumers. While Georgia Power did not set out to be a critical player in the construction materials supply chain, that is where they have partially and accidentally ended up, at least in the eyes of the ready-mix concrete industry. Both Georgia Power and the concrete industry are more knowledgeable today on best practices for capturing, handling, storing, and reclaiming ash for future beneficial reuse than ever before. Even with less coal being used today, our industry has a safe and consistent supply of fly ash that, when used in concrete, benefits citizens of Georgia all across the state. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Sir, you might have said this, but how many decades or how many years roughly has fly ash been a central component of concrete?
I know, well, the ancient Romans used volcanic ash in their concrete mixes going back 2000, 3000 BC, but I know Georgia DOT has been specifying ash in mixes for decades now.
Thank you.
I have just a couple questions for you. One, thanks for clarifying this for our audience today, that fly ash or coal ash coming out of our plants today, being used today in construction. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And you said up to 30% of a bag of ready mix could be fly ash?
Yeah, well,
not a bag.
Your ready mix, a yard of ready mix concrete is going to contain cement, sand, rock, water, but you can take some of that cement out, up to 30% of the content, depending on the mix, depending on the strengths you need, depending on the outcome you need for the concrete. You can replace it with fly ash.
And were you aware that in the IRP that we just finished up, that we looked at possibly investing in equipment that would allow legacy ash in these ponds to be remediated into use that your industry could use? Were you aware that we looked at that?
Yes, sir. It's my understanding that's been examined. I know that's a practice that's taking hold in other states, and it has not quite yet come to Georgia, but I know that is something that's being...
And it's really just a supply and demand issue. Do you understand that? That we need you all to take all the fly ash that we have, and you're not currently taking all of it.
We'll take as much as we can get. There's sensitivities too when, depending on the electrical production process, the availability of ash. At times in the past, we've seen ash run out, but I do know that Georgia Power is moving to better handling of ash on site that's making for more consistent supply for us.
And wouldn't it make sense that if we, in our next IRP, which I anticipate this happening, we do invest in this equipment, and if we continue to close coal plants and the supply of ash is going away, that this legacy ash that we have in the ground in ponds could supply your industry for the next 100 years with what you need?
I couldn't tell you the exact time frame, but I do understand the reserves are substantial around the state.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ross and Reese and then Hooper.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Bryden Ross, and I'm the Vice President of State Affairs for Consumer Energy Alliance. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. CEA is a nationwide nonpartisan organization that advocates on behalf of families and small businesses, households, and manufacturers on the fixed and those on fixed incomes to ensure we have affordable, reliable, and abundant domestic energy. We have more than 550,000 members nationwide and over 20,000 here in Georgia. And we're focused on all the above approach that promotes environmentally sound policies to utilize all of our available resources and technologies and move our economy forward and power the lives of our communities and neighbors, many of whom are struggling to get by. CEA has long supported efforts to modernize and update our electric infrastructure to improve reliability and help keep costs down for consumers and families and businesses by reducing the harm and impact of expensive power outages. A study by the DOE's Berkeley National Laboratory found that even momentary power outages cost the U.S. economy $52 billion a year. Nationwide, we may need to invest over $2 trillion alone by 2030 just to keep current grid reliability going. As many of you all know, and we don't have to reiterate here, Georgia has experienced an unprecedented amount of damaging storms like Hurricane Michael that caused over $3 billion in agriculture damage. Georgia Power storm accounts have been depleted from responding to dozens of severe weather events and very destructive hurricanes over the past 6 years that have cost billions in damage and impacted millions of Georgians. This commission has an opportunity to approve phasing investments that over time will pay significant dividends for families and businesses in the future to provide a more capable and secure grid for our increasingly interconnected lives. We're asking more from our grid in terms of interoperability, distributed energy deployment, connectivity, EV charging, and enhanced cybersecurity and protection, but our current rate structure also has to keep pace. Unfortunately, the cost of these increasing demands aren't being adequately covered under the current base rate charges. The right signals need to be set now for long-term planning and investment, rather than relying on the unpredictability of variable charges. Georgians have been blessed to have electric rates that have been well below the national average and a regulatory climate that attracts new residences and businesses. We need to stay on a path to prosperity by making wise investments today to ensure our families and farmers and small businesses continue to have the reliable and secure grid they need and the affordable energy they count on every day. With that, I'll end my comments here and reserve some time back for y'all, but thanks for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Reese. And then IMSAND, Brian will be on deck too. Thank you, Ms. Reese.
Thank you. I'd be happy to take some of that reserved time.
Now you got 5 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Christine Reese. I'm a professor of economics at Georgia Tech. I'm here to support Georgia Power's request to increase both its residential electricity rates and its base service rates. I completed my PhD at the University of Chicago and have served on faculties at the Harvard Business School, the Fuqua School of Business at Duke University, Stanford Business School, Peter Drucker Center at Claremont University. I've published numerous books and articles for academic, professional journals, and public interest and policy journals. My orientation here today is about the adoption of sound economic principles in public policy. In the interest of transparency, I'm currently pursuing research funded by Georgia Power on the relationship between electrical power and Georgia's economic development. However, my testimony here is based solely on sound economic analysis and reasoning. Probably most relevant to the commission is my service on as a member of the 12-person 2010 Special Council for Tax Reform and Fairness for Georgians. Our report recommended a strong pro-growth tax program that included the outlines of the current GATE program, and this program has been responsible for enhancing the competitiveness of Georgia's agricultural sector and also mining and manufacturing sectors. After examination of the data and the analysis, my own and Georgia Power's, I support both the residential electricity rate increase and the increase in the base service rate. Georgia Power compares extremely favorably with comparable electricity providers, including some that sell electricity in states with which we compete for new business and investment. Georgia Power's rates are currently 16% below a national average of comparable providers. I've independently corroborated this assessment, the data, and the analytics. Data is drawn from a database of the U.S. Energy Information Administration, and Georgia Power's analysis of this data meets the highest standards of data analytics. I have carefully reproduced, and can certify those results. Further, I've assessed the history of Georgia Power's rate increases. The proposed 7.1% rate increase is actually below the inflation rate of 10.1% that we have had since 2013, the date of the last rate increase. These analytics demonstrate that the requested rate increase is responsible, not excessive, and will contribute to the maintenance of Georgia's position as a competitive place to invest and manufacture. It may be less obvious that the requested rate base increase is necessary and will contribute to Georgia's competitive advantage. This base rate increase is significantly below the cost of providing these services, which the company assesses at about $21. While the specific analysis of these costs is confidential and not fully available to me, I've carefully assessed the analytical methodology applied by the company to arrive at these numbers, and I find that the analysis aligns with best analytical practices. So the proposed increase in base rate is reasonable and perhaps even low. Lastly, it is important to note that Georgia Power's proposed shift of charges from the variable to the fixed proportions of its charges also contributes to the competitiveness of Georgia's economy. When customers pay fixed charges for fixed costs and variable charges for variable costs, the price structure aligns customers' usage decisions with actual economic costs. This maximizes the efficiency of Georgia's markets and economy. When the balance between fixed and variable costs and charges is instead distorted by regulations, a complicated subsidy is created that misaligns the cost structures across important segments of the economy. In economics terms, we call this a deadweight loss. As an example, consider the data center industry. Data centers are heavy users of electricity and essential components of fintech or financial technology sector. Competitiveness in data center activity is especially important to the future of Georgia. Our fintech industry is already an essential complement to Georgia's role in global international trade. Payments processing complements Georgia's port locations and operations, the deepening of the ports, the widening of the Panama Canal, etc. If we adopt a rate structure that raises variable or usage rates in order to provide artificially low base rates, we stand at the possible loss of these payments processing and trade advantages.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Reese, go Dogs. Hooper, Isline, and Eubanks.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Conwell Hooper, Executive Director of the American Senior Alliance. We're a nonprofit organization bringing together a nation's senior citizens protecting their rights and services that they have earned. Through strong and targeted advocacy, American Senior Alliance fights to preserve the financial resources of our seniors. We strive to provide crucial and timely information to our older Americans, giving them opportunities to partner with friends, volunteers, and advocates to support or defeat policies that could jeopardize their best interest. Our 50-plus population needs a voice that is truly looking after them. In these brief moments, allow me to offer a few compliments and constructive advice to assist our older population and your constituents. First, the compliments. I travel the U.S. monitoring policies that are designed to assist our older, struggling adults. Georgia has many thoughtful and aggressive programs aimed at meeting their needs. I commend your Senior Citizen Discount Program that provides a $24 credit on the monthly bill for those 65 and older who are on the lower end of the income scale. I do wish, though, more who qualified for this outstanding program knew about it. I would also commend Georgia Power's decision to integrate into the rate base the transaction fees for payments with cash or credit cards made at remote payment locations. If you approve this, it could save older Georgians almost $4 a month. Utilities have a history of working with nonprofits to assist customers with their bills that they're struggling to pay. We're grateful for the Salvation Army, HopeWorks, and others who step up in the time of need. Those are excellent investments this commission and utilities are making. In my experience, those who struggle the most are the least connected. By the time a senior citizen is about to have their power service terminated, their internet connection has already been cut off. We believe seniors struggle with accessing the many services and programs that you and the utilities have designed. This is not on you. It falls on each of the NGOs and community servants to educate everyone on these programs and help get the message out. It needs to be in simple and understandable terms. I'm not the designer of rates or discount programs for seniors. However, I am their advocate and call on this commission to develop tactical plans to get the message out to those in need. AMSA is committed to help promote the messages, and I call on others to pitch in too. Not only will this preserve our senior citizens' financial resources, it will direct resources to those who need it most as you wrestle with funding the other elements of this rate case to keep Georgia successful and thriving. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoover. Brian, your last name, sir?
My last name is Imsan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman McDonald, Commissioners. Good morning. My name is Brian Imson. I'm a Vice President of Service Electric Company. Thanks for your time today to allow me to share with you a message about our partnership with Georgia Power and the IBEW and how that partnership benefits us all, but particularly how it benefits the consumers of electricity in the state of Georgia. First, a little about Service Electric. We were established in 1945, and we take great pride in conducting business with integrity and in producing quality work on time and within budget. Our services include emergency storm restoration, construction and maintenance of substations, transmission lines, and distribution lines. We're particularly proud that we do all of that with an excellent safety record while keeping the lights on across the Southeast and across the country wherever grid construction and restoration draws us. We employ a well-trained and experienced IBEW workforce to deliver our services with the highest emphasis on employee and public safety. Our partnership believes that it is our greatest responsibility to see that our employees return home to their families the same as they left them, and to do the work with the least possible impact to the customers of Georgia Power. Whether it's underground, distribution, transmission, or substation, our IBEW workforce is working alongside theirs as we partner to modernize the grid and make it even more reliable. When it comes to workforce development, we all work together to meet the current demand for line workers, and even more importantly, to plan for the future generation of linemen. Our apprenticeship, which is located in Noonan, Georgia, continues to grow and has nearly doubled in the past 5 years. Georgia Power also frequently uses us as a resource to help complement their own internal workforce by hiring linemen trained and employed by Service Electric. We sometimes, in the past, have effectively served as a workforce development team. In the past, we've had a program where Georgia Power would employ team members of ours for up to 12 months. And if successful, these well-trained and vetted mid-career employees of ours would be hired by them as journeyman linemen. As utility staffing has struggled to keep up with demand, this has been yet another way of helping Georgia be ready for the economic growth that continues today and is so reliant on a modern grid. The regular investment in the electric system and the employment provided to us by Georgia Power and other utilities allows us to provide our employees with the best of benefits and to plan for our future and the growing needs of our industry. And as I'm sure you all well know, Georgia's energy reliability and restoration times are some of the best in the country. Georgia Power regularly commends our team for our assistance to restore power following hurricanes and pop-up storms, and such specific examples as our work to restore power in Albany following Hurricane Michael, and in Columbus following a day of tornadoes there. We never hesitate to respond when Georgia Power calls because we know it's a well-run and well-financed company, and they quickly pay their bills. Not every utility in the industry pays on time, and we've had bad experiences in other areas. Trust me when I say that a utility's ability to pay is a big factor because contractors prioritize where to send their crews. Georgia Power, again, is a good partner, and the Commission is to be commended for solid funding of infrastructure investments and storm account needs. So I believe that the past is a really good story for Georgia and the Commission. Well-funded investments in energy infrastructure have delivered a resilient grid that has made Georgia one of the best states to do business. And my hope in appearing here today is to see that story continue. To continue to see investments in infrastructure and storm readiness that Service Electric has been proud to be a part of with Georgia Power. A story of good jobs and economic development and a robust and reliable grid that when damaged by weather can be rapidly restored. Most citizens of the state of Georgia will never know of this hearing today or these deliberations, but they do indeed enjoy the benefits of your past decisions daily. It's my hope that we will all continue to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. M. Sand.
Mr. Imsand,
Yes, sir.
I appreciate the perspective you've added along with Mr. Spivey, but, I've got several close friends that are linemen, and we've, and I can't help but think about when I was sitting there with my family at Labor Day earlier this month. They were out there staging and getting ready and doing what they could to prepare for the storm and the
Yes, sir.
damage. And we got lucky, obviously, on that one here in Georgia, thank God. But the job that your folks do, and Mr. Spivey's folks do, I see that as the backbone of this company, Mr. Bowers. And I just want to publicly tell you we appreciate everything y'all do.
Thank you very much. They work hard and make sacrifices, and they treat the employee with empathy because they know what it's like.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Eubanks, Black, and Noel.
Good morning. Members of the Commission, it is an honor to be able to speak to you today. I am Mayor James Eubanks of Pelham, Georgia, in Mitchell County, which is located in rural southwest Georgia. Before becoming mayor in 2015, I served on the City Council for 9.5 years. Through my time in service, I've had the distinction of serving on several municipal government organizations and boards. Pelham has many distinctions. We are the hometown of Donnie Cochran, former commander of the Blue Angels Precision Air Team, and Fred Hand, a former Georgia Speaker of the House. And last year we had another distinction. For the first time in the history of our town, we were struck by a major hurricane. Last October, when the eye of Hurricane Michael crossed over our town of roughly 4,000 residents, we experienced Category 3 hurricane winds. This is especially alarming since we are located over 100 miles inland and normally are considered a hurricane evacuation destination. You surely saw the coverage of the impact on southwest Georgia. Hundreds of acres of pecan trees uprooted, row crops swept from their fields, roofs ripped off and strewn into surrounding counties, and even a solar farm in our area was destroyed. What the media did not cover was the depth of the struggle of the citizens. The morning after the storm, all of the highways entering our town were completely blocked. 20% of our trees were down, and at least 50% of the roofs in our town sustained damage. As Michael crossed into Georgia, power was the first utility we lost. Media reports said that almost 200,000 customers were without power across our sparsely populated region. Without power, our communications were severely impacted, as well as our ability to control, manage, and receive readings from our water system. Without specific information on the quantity of water that was stored in our tanks and the quantity being consumed, we soon found ourselves without a water supply. This was very dangerous for our citizens that obviously needed water for cooking, drinking, and general hygiene. Another serious concern for us in the city was the lack of fire protection. And as the backup water system for Autry State Prison, we quickly had a state penitentiary with almost 17,000 inmates unable to care for their population. The morning after the storm, I, as the mayor, started reaching out to Georgia Power and was very pleased with their quick response to our calls for help. They had an incredible army of linemen already lined up that began rolling into our city. This helped not only with the restoration of our power system, but with the morale of our citizens. I continued to stay in communication with Georgia Power at multiple levels, and when we became aware of our water situation and how this was affecting our state prison, Georgia Power was quick to respond and help us seek all options to get our main well, along with the power system, up and functioning as quickly as possible. Amazingly, power was restored to our water system within 48 hours of our tanks running dry. As some of our downtown businesses needed power to help assist getting our city back up and functioning, Georgia Power prioritized them. The crews that they brought in performed above and beyond the promises and expectations we had for power restoration. All the sections of our town were powered up within 4 days, leaving only a few homes that received significant damage to be activated later. This was about 1 week ahead of what had been anticipated. I know the Commission is considering many matters in the next few days. I wanted your deliberations to be informed of the quick response my community experienced in a moment of great need. The gratitude of our citizens was evident by the number offering water, food, and encouragement to the linemen. As mayor, I can't express my appreciation enough for the quick response to our calls for help, to Georgia Power's willingness to work with us as the situation developed, and their partnership in restoring our town. We endured the worst storm in our history, and Georgia Power stepped in immediately to help us provide safety and security for our citizens and to rebuild our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Black, Noel, and Watson. Michelle Black? Michael Black? All right, Mr. Noel?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Well, good morning. Commissioner Pridemore, I have not met you. I look forward to it at some point. Commissioner Shaw, I have not met you. Look forward to it at some point. Commissioner Eaton, I've enjoyed sparring with you last year, and your good nature, I appreciated that very much. Commissioner and Chairman Mr. McDonald, your gentlemanly ways are legend, and I thank you for those and your courtesy. And Commissioner Eccles, I've enjoyed sparring with you more than you'll know on any number of issues. My name is John Noel. I own a company for 20 years, Energy and Environment. We do national energy efficiency projects, so I consider myself somewhat of an expert in the energy efficiency space, and I'm a former legislator elected in the early 2000s, and spoke before this commission on matters of energy efficiency at that time. I think the gentleman chairman was here at that time. I think we sparred on an item or two.
Surely not.
But that's okay. And that's part of the process, and that's why I'm here today, is to give you my thoughts as a person of the public, a private citizens allowed, at least still. And I'm also delighted to see Mr. Bowers here today, who a fellow that I call the $4 million man, because this helps to illustrate exactly what, in part, I see the problem. We have people coming before us today who can barely pay their electric bills. The proposal before you is to raise their monthly charges. And we have a fellow who makes $11,500 a day. By the end of my remarks, we'll have made $40 for just the time that I'm speaking here. That kind of discrepancy and disparity is part of the problem. And so when a power company with well-heeled lawyers making more perhaps per hour than Mr. Bowers does comes before you and asks for increases, one needs to go maybe take a business case to this. I'm a businessman. When someone asks to raise a fee or a price that I pay, I say, well, where are your efficiencies? What are you paying right now? And it looks to me, and I may be wrong about the number, but I think they have an ROE of 11.9%. Well, the average in the country is 10. Well, let's see, maybe we should reduce that a little bit before we start going to people and to seniors, as the gentleman earlier spoke of, and the people in Chatham County, and saying, well, we need a little something from you. We need to raise your base rates. And what happened to the old adage, you turn your lights off and you're efficient and you're miserly? I'm a Presbyterian, as the good chairman is. I mean, I can tell you a little something about miserly. I, for example, have determined that it costs 1 cent to juice up my cell phone. But at night, on the EV charging rate, it only costs ½ cent. That kind of miserliness, that sort of thinking is what we ought to be thinking about. And when we shift all of the expenses and rates into higher fees, then the miserliness gets to go away. Like, people just end up paying higher fees. Mr. Bowers made the point that, quote, the power was clean and safe, and also that rates were low. I would argue rates are low because fees are high. So if we play this game where our fees keep getting increased, you can have low rates, but you're still paying higher fees. And the base rate, the higher base rate is but one example of that. So I want to give a market-driven example. I want to reduce my carbon footprint. That's my particular theory, but I'm also not averse to saving money, a Presbyterian thing. So I installed solar panels many, many years ago. When Tesla came out with their batteries, I got the first 2 Powerwalls in Georgia. So what I've done is I've effectively lowered my energy consumption with solar, and now I put that juice into batteries, and I use that in the evening time. So I'm sort of like the poster child for somebody who's decided, as rates increase and all this nuclear plant expense comes on, and as Mr. Bowers wants more of my money so he can continue to get his, I understand that I need to become my own source of power as best I can. I have the ability to do that. Most people don't. And I think we should be very cautious about increasing monthly fees on people who have less money. I thank the gentlemen and ladies for the time, and I'm open to questions if anybody cares for them.
Thank you, Mr. Noel.
Thank you.
I don't have a question, but I do have a statement.
No.
I'm just running the numbers here. But this commission and the IRP passed you mentioned that you're in the energy efficiency business,
I am.
Mr. Noel?
I am.
Okay, so this commission passed an energy efficiency measure as part of the 2019 IRP. With its first year is $4.8 million. Its second year is $4.9 million to ratepayers. The third year is $5 million to ratepayers, totaling $14.7 million to ratepayers.
That ratepayers pay for and is one of the smallest in the country.
We discuss over and over again energy efficiency, yet there are costs to ratepayers for energy efficiency, correct?
True.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Thank you.
Watson, Chapman, and Carter.
Good morning. I am a
Reese, pull that microphone up for her, please, if you will.
Okay. I am a customer of Georgia Power. And I am on a set income. I live in Clayton County. My rent has gone up $116 in 2 years. My bank account went below the minimum necessary balance. They charge me $8 penalty because my balance didn't remain at the minimum. I have a granddaughter who I want to know what financial wealth is. So I put money aside for her in an insurance policy. My set income goes up $20 a month in 2 years because of my vocal disorder. I'm limited in the kind of work I can get. And I'm aging out of work. I collect pennies because I know they add up. And I believe in progress. I believe in business. So maybe as an alternative, the base rate may be 25 cents. The rate hike may be 25 cents. I can see that. But having to put out $200 or more a year, I would have to cut back on my meals and my granddaughter's savings. So I offer this alternative because pennies do add up. 25 cents for a base rate, 25 cents for a rate hike. I can live with that. But I don't live in the dark. Thank you.
Ms. Watson, thank you very much. And if you desire to write a comment or written comment, I'll make sure that it's a part of the record. If you can turn it in by either email or by leaving it at the offices at the front on this same floor. But I'll sure make it a part of the record. Thank you. Chapman, Carter, and Sumter Ford.
Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to provide comments today. My name is Jesse DeMumbrian Chapman. I'm the Executive Director and Riverkeeper at Coosa River Basin Initiative. I'm not here today to debate or discuss variable versus base rates. I'll let brighter minds, economists, talk about that. I do take issue with the concept of passing coal ash cleanup charges on to ratepayers. I don't think that it comes as a surprise to anyone that coal ash is an incredibly difficult waste stream to deal with and to clean up. However, when regulations have forced Georgia Power to confront these actual costs of generating electricity by burning coal, the initial plan is to strap those costs onto ratepayers who have already bought that electricity with a built-in profit for Georgia Power. So I take no issue at all with Georgia Power held by shareholders making profit off of the generation of its electricity. I do take issue with Georgia Power accepting that profit at a rate that this commission approved, and then down the road, when it comes time to clean up that mess, charging ratepayers again who have already bought that electricity to clean up this coal ash, which again should have come as no surprise to anyone that this tab was going to come due. And I don't believe that it is appropriate to put that cost onto ratepayers. I have an incredibly strong-willed 4-year-old at home, and my wife and I have our work cut out with us daily, teaching the lesson that she is responsible for cleaning up her own mess, and I would hope that this commission would apply that same logic to Georgia Power and reject any rate increase that includes placing the cost of coal ash cleanup onto ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. Carter?
Hello, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you as a private citizen. My name is Catherine Carter. I have lived in Decatur, Georgia for most of my 76 years. I've paid bills to Georgia Power for at least 50. I'm a retired biology, environmental science professor, and as such have preached to students for many years the importance of energy conservation. I personally have gone to absurd lengths to conserve energy myself, to the point that I have not turned on my home air conditioner all summer. Yes, it has been really uncomfortable for me and my dogs, but we've survived. Consequently, it disturbs me a lot to pay for the same monthly fixed fee, $10, that customers who consume far more energy use than I do each month. And now Georgia Power wants to increase that fixed fee by 80% to $17.95, as I understand it. I've heard rumors that Georgia Power has lost money as other customers have conserved energy. However, I don't know if this is true. We all pay the same whether we turn on a light or not. This morning before I came in, I heard a Georgia Tech scientist quoted on NPR that with less control over power use, there will be less effort to control or to conserve. Ironically, I see TV commercials showing Georgia Power folks being good citizens, cleaning up creeks, making house repairs, and even keeping bees. But what we would really appreciate is not having to pay an extra $215 per year just to be attached to the grid. Who will be hurt most? Those who use the least energy. So I ask you, please vote no on the Georgia Power fixed fee hike and the rate hike. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Carter. Mr. Ford?
Senator,
Senator Ford.
Senator, I would have had you pegged as a 3-minute guy. I don't know.
Yeah. I usually can't say my name in 3 minutes. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. This action you take will, as you know, affect more Georgians than almost any other action state government takes. I want to tell you, Georgia recently has been ranked number 4 in poverty, either by income or income inequality. I know my city, the city of Atlanta, is recently been number 1 in income inequality. This rate increase would be burdensome, and I know there are subsidies for fixed income seniors and others, but let me tell you, I get calls even now out of office from senior citizens and others who need help paying their power bill. I I don't know if you all, I think you all are part of the LIHEAP program and other programs. That doesn't go far enough. I know because, like I said, I get those calls. This will be devastating for those fixed income senior citizens. It will be devastating for the poor and the working poor, not just jobless people, but the working poor, particularly with children, single parent in homes, either fathers or mothers who need, who have to pinch pennies, not as a fad, but as a way to survive. And so I would implore you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, not to provide Georgia Power with this rate increase. As I've done a little bit of research, I see that this Georgia Power CEO, and if I am looking at old numbers, if the CEO has gotten a pay cut or a pay increase, from what I understand, he gets an increase of, he's got a salary, this Georgia Power CEO, of $4 million. And we've already heard this morning that the company the parent company has made about $3 billion in the last fiscal year. That is astounding. And we're standing here talking about raising rates for Georgia Power to this extreme. I find it difficult to pay my bill sometimes. I pay it, but I find it difficult. If I find it difficult, I know there are other folk, not just in Southwest Atlanta, not just in Atlanta, but in Savannah and in Augusta and in Albany and other places around the state that just going to find it impossible to pay these rates. Particularly, I'm going to throw this in about my neighborhood. I just don't understand why my power go out on a bi-weekly basis. But I hear that happens not citywide, but in certain neighborhoods. So I'm just implore you not to provide Georgia Power with this rate increase. Do the right thing by the working people of the state of Georgia, the poor, working people, fixed income seniors. And then there are some seniors who live in senior locations, senior high rises. They don't pay a power bill. Oh, yes, they do. Because either the subsidy, even if it's subsidized by the citizens through the federal government and the housing authority has to pass that on to that senior citizen in that senior high rise or other senior location. So this is a momentous decision that you will make. I hope you will do the right thing. Say no to Georgia Power. Say no to this rate hike. Say no to people being pushed in this way. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I appreciate your hard work.
Thank you, Senator. Ladies and gentlemen, that ends the public witness comments at this time. Mr. Green, if you'll call your witness back to the box, sir, and we will continue.
All right. Mr. Chairman,
Maybe before you do that, Mr. Green, let me say on behalf of Commissioner Pridemore, Eccles, Shaw, and Eaton, I just want to thank the public witnesses for taking the time to come to this commission and to express themselves and to show the concern that they have, that the charge that this commission has and the responsibility that it has. Not only the responsibility to the low-income seniors, but to the business community and, of course, the economy of this state overall. So I just want to say that on behalf of my colleagues here at the commission. Continue, Mr. Green. I apologize.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bowers is back now in the witness box and is available for questions from the bench if you have any that followed that public comment period, and then for cross-examination from the parties.
Did we swear the witness in?
We did, yes, sir.
Okay, I didn't remember. Georgia Power, Georgia Public Service Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Powers. Dan Walsh, representing the Public Interest Advocacy staff. You said in your summary of your testimony this morning that Georgia Power Company's rates are 16% below the national average. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, that comparison between Georgia Power Company's rates and the national average, was that before the company's requested rate increase?
That is correct.
So it doesn't take into consideration if the company's requested rate increase is adopted?
That is correct, because there are other rate proceedings across the United States that are being conducted as we speak. So the comparisons from 2013 through 2018.
And that comparison that the Georgia Power's rates are 16% below the national average, that's customer classes as a whole, is that correct?
That's total retail. When you look at the breakdown, you have the industrial class is 20% below the national average. When you look at the residential, it's 12% below the national average.
And do you know how are residential rates compared to the national average if the company's proposed rate increase is approved by the commission? Do you know?
I do not know.
Okay. And
but
does
we
your
will be, I do know, based on inflation and what we're seeing out of some of the cases that are occurring across the United States, will still be below the national average. I just don't have a percentage.
Mr. Bowers, would you please pull that microphone a bit closer, please? Thank you.
Sorry.
Even more than that if you want to.
Mr. Bowers, does your statement that rates are 16% below the national average include the Vogtle 3 and Vogtle 4 NCCR rates?
They're a total inclusion of that. That's correct.
Okay, the NCCR is included.
That's right.
Could you please refer to your direct testimony at page 3, line 26?
Please repeat your page and line number again.
Sure, it is page 3 of his direct testimony at line 20, actually line 25 and 26.
Thank you.
Yes.
Here you state that, I believe you state that the net, the company has had, at net, the company has had a staffing reduction of more than 1,000 positions. Am I reading your testimony correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I would like to provide the witness with a copy of the company's response to STF LNA-1-77, that data request. May I approach?
You may approach.
And Mr. Chairman, I would ask that the company's response to 1-77 be marked for identification as Staff Exhibit 1.
So marked.
Mr. Bowers, I want to give you a moment to review the response, but when you're ready, could you turn to attachment B to the response?
Is that the last page?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay. Is it correct that in 2014, the company had approximately 7,900 employees?
That's correct.
When you made your statement that there's been a net reduction in employees of over 1,000, was that the number that you were beginning with?
I don't recall exactly what the number was that we began with, but you also have to consider what is budgeted, what's actually employed at the time. Because so these look like these are actual head count at the moment in time at the end of the year of 2014 compared to June of 2019. So if you look at end of 2018, it's 6,900. So there is an aspect of our business, there is churn within our business. And in fact, we always are out in the market hiring people. So, but the net reduction of headcount, net reduction of jobs was over 1,000 people.
If you could look, well, first of all, the company's filing is based on a projected test year
That's correct.
ending July 31st, 2020, and 3 projected calendar years, 2020, 2021, and 2022. Is that right?
That's correct.
And for the budgeted workforce shown in the company's response here, if I could get you to look at the years 2020, 2021, and 2022, they're on the lower column, the last 3 numbers. Am I correct that it reads 7348 for 2020, 7346 for each year, 2021 and 2022? Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so if we compare the 2014 number to the years you have in 2020 through 2022, it's roughly a reduction of about 550 employees. Is that correct?
There will be a net. That's correct.
Thank you. Mr. Powers,
Wallace, when you take points in time like that, you're not considering what the other costs that are going to be incurred in our business. Right now, we're hiring a tremendous amount of people for cybersecurity. So there is costs that are now being incurred for protection of infrastructure, as well as cybersecurity experts to ensure that our system is protected. So those were not accounted for in the future. Now they are in this reflection of headcounts. You also have to consider the other things that are putting pressure on our business. So there is projections that we're showing in this case that are driving cost in our business.
right, the purpose of the question was just to kind of grind down on the comment in your testimony. Mr. Powers, are you aware that the company has earned above its authorized return on equity each year since the 2013 rate case?
No, we have not.
Which year have you not?
When you think about the set point of what this commission does in terms of setting the rate of return at 10.95, and then you have a 100 basis point range around that from 10 to 12, that is authorized by this commission in terms of being reasonable. Also, part of that, if you go above the set point of the band of 12%, then the commission authorized the sharing between the customers and the company of 2/3, 1/3.
You've earned above the 10.9 amount in each year, is that correct?
We have earned within the bandwidth over this period of time, and we've had earned above the 12% to allow.
My question was, you've earned above the midpoint of the band, correct? In each year?
We have.
Okay, and you've earned above?
But it was authorized by the commission at a set point of 10.95 and with a band of 10 to 12, and we were earned within that band, and some years we went above the band.
You went above the band in 2014, 2016, and 2018, correct?
That's correct, and we also had additional weather during those periods of year that benefit the customers as well.
And you've earned above the 10.9 in the other 2 years I mentioned, correct?
That's
in
correct.
every year. So the company has earned well since the 2013.
And
rate
yes,
case.
we have done what this commission allowed in terms of a range of earnings, have set an ROE of 10.95. The rates never changed for the last 6 years. They stayed the same for the 6 years. The commission incents this company to perform, and it incents it to be excellent at what we do. The incentive allows us the range of possibilities to earn between that 10 and 12%.
And the company's been able to provide safe and reliable service each of those years, correct?
That's correct, and been recognized as one of the best in the industry.
And you were able to do that even though in the last company's rate case you did not get everything you asked for, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions. I'd ask that Staff Exhibit 1 be admitted into evidence.
So marked. City of Atlanta. Commercial Group. Concerned ratepayers of Georgia.
Yeah. Few moments to set up, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Penovich, you ready, sir?
Couple of moments, sir. Trying to get organized so it'll flow smoothly.
Well, you could have organized earlier this
What
morning.
you want me to do, but yeah, I need to do it here.
You gave up your seat over there.
Well, I did come back, but somebody took it, so, you know. Good morning, Mr. Bowers. I'm Steve Prenovitz with Concerned Ratepayers of Georgia. It's nice to meet you.
Good morning, Mr. Privilege.
In the beginning of your testimony, you made some very candid observations that I was quite impressed with. I'd like to discuss. On page 2 or 3, you mentioned the critical importance of electricity, which it is, and acknowledged that major rate increases can cause financial hardships to customers. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You don't need to reread what he has stated,
I
Mr.
understand, sir.
Prinovich.
Let me-
No, listen to me for a minute. Now, we'll just get this right off the bat. He has testified and sworn to his statements are true. So ask the question. Don't reread everything. That goes not only for you, but all interveners. Thank you very much.
How great a concern is this potential have to customers for Georgia Power?
Mr. Prinovich, it's a great concern. I think you've heard from many of the public witnesses that there are hardships associated with their day-to-day life. We recognize that 40% of our customers make less than $40,000. So the programs that we have proposed and have presented to this commission in the IRP and other programs that we're proposing in this case are really focused on that.
Do those programs alleviate that impact for the customers, do you think?
No, sir. It minimizes some of the impact.
Okay. Is this also a major concern for the commissioner, the 5 commissioners, that this causes a lot of harm? What did you say, does that mean that 40% of your customers are really negatively impacted by this rate increase? Is that a fair interpretation?
No. Anytime you have an increase, Mr. Prinovich, I think this commission will consider all customers are being impacted by the any type of rate increase. We strive to listen to our customers. We have focus groups with our customers to understand those issues and try to eliminate some of the pressures that come to bear.
Have you anything that you heard today from the public witnesses that are going to cause kind of a change in policies that you have originally proposed?
Mr. Penovich, I think the rate plans that we have proposed at this commission will address some of the issues that were raised today.
Okay. What about that fixed rate where it went like from, was it $10 to $18 or something like that, where several said that was a real hardship for them? Are you willing to modify that?
Mr. Penovich, and I think this commission's got to consider the basic service charge. We have the lowest service charge in the state of Georgia compared to all the electric providers.
Okay.
The cost of service witness that will be coming up behind me will be focused on the allocation methodology of the cost. There is a fixed charge and fixed cost to serve every customer in this state.
Okay, but it's still going like from what, $10 to $18 or something?
Over 3 years.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So the answer is you're not proposed to modify that request at this time, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, fair enough. You mentioned that your rates are 16% below the national average, but then you also said something very candid. You said this fact alone does not justify a rate increase. We owe our customers an explanation. Briefly, what's the explanation?
Well, over the last 6 years, we've invested $8.7 billion of cost into the infrastructure of Georgia. We spent over $450 million on storm restoration costs that are not reflected in the rates. And we have really zeroed in on being efficient. So we have reduced costs by $126 million in O&M that our customers will never see again in our rates.
Okay. So basically, you increased the O&M cost, which, by the way, you should be commended for doing so.
We reduced the O&M costs, Mr. President.
Yeah, I said that. Right. And also, but the capital costs are really pretty high, are they not?
That's correct.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Also, you mentioned that over the years, you've repeated that the rates are below the national average, but since you've said it's really not that relevant to the customer's concern, why do you keep repeating it?
because it puts in context the competitive nature of our product. When you look at the capital intensity of our business, I'll give you some comparisons.
Okay.
For every dollar of plant investment required to produce $1 in revenue, we have to have, and compared to automobile manufacturers, we have to invest 14 more dollars than what an automobile manufacturer has to invest. And if you look at UPS as a specific company, it's $10 more from a capital intensity. So we are very capital intense.
That's true. How'd you get that number, 16% below the national average?
I think Mr. Walsh referenced it in some of the aspects that he was looking at, and that is a national EIA data survey of all the electric utilities and rate comparisons.
Okay, well, let me call to your attention. Ron Henson, who basically was, I guess, the lead witness in the 2013 rate case. He was your former executive VP of Finance. He referenced on page 2 of his testimony that rates were 11% below the national average in 2013. Is that correct?
I have to see his testimony, but I believe that's probably correct.
Well, that would be
at point
page
in
2,
time.
line 18. Also, from the Feder on the in February 2019, the U.S. Energy Information Administration, Electric Power Monthly, had Georgia Power's rates about 10% below the national average. They had Georgia Power at 9.52, and the average was 10.58 cents. So there was a discrepancy in that between. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to object to this. Either he can show him the information or let Mr. Bowers comment on it if Mr. Bowers has seen that before. But I don't think it's appropriate for Mr.
Sustained, Mr. Panovich.
Yes, sir.
If you remember, if you listened this morning, I think the witness described the rates, the industrial rate and the residential rates. And then if you also listen to the public witness, the analytical study that she had made was very, very documented and very specific, and that one might help you with understanding your question.
I take exception to that testimony of the witness that was basically financed by.
You
the
have that
power
right.
industry. Okay,
Continue.
well, that's why I wasn't relying on her. Okay. Also, wouldn't the riders increase the cost above the national average? And the riders being like the NCC, the ECC,
Mr.
FF?
President, like I mentioned before,
Mr.
it's all-
Panovich, that question had already been asked and answered.
So the answer is yes?
The answer that the NCCR is part of the rate, and it is identified in the 16% below national average.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And the key issue, how much money is Georgia Power requesting in this rate case?
It's stair step, it's around, right at $900 million.
Okay, I'm confused, because I'm looking at Mr. Perot. Did I pronounce his name right?
Mr. Chairman, again,
No,
he's asking a question that's in the testimony with regard to what the rate increase is.
Thank you,
It's
Mr.
not
President.
particularly in Mr. Bowers' testimony, but it is in the testimony of the case, so I don't know that he needs to be asking questions that have been sworn to under oath.
Well, I want to get the points out there, because basically what Mr. Perot comes up with, he's got a rate increase of, in 2020.
You ask questions, you don't make statements.
I am quoting Mr. Perot, because he's come up with a number of $2.24 billion. Mr. Bowers just said, what was it, how much, 800?
He disagrees. Continue.
This is Georgia Power's testimony.
Okay.
Okay, so, I mean, is he right?
I will defer to Mr. Baroque on the overall, because there is a counting treatment associated with that, but the rate increase overall, and I think it's quoted, is 7.2% in 2020, 1.75% in 2021, and 2.74% in 2022.
Okay, and the total number again was what, from your perspective?
It is $563 million in 2020, $145 million in 2021, and $234 million in 2022.
And the total is what? What's that, 6? Is that about 850 or so?
Like I said, approximately $900 million.
900 million? Okay. Okay. Is this the largest rate increase Georgia Power has ever requested in its history?
No, sir.
What were some of the larger ones?
Mr. Prinovich, there has been several cases before this commission. In 2010, I think there is a case that is approximately $1 billion overall. They've had cases in the 90s that were pretty significant. I just do not recall.
So this is a pretty big one, though. Would you agree on that?
The majority of this cost is about $500 million associated with coal ash recovery. The base business is roughly $400 million.
Okay, but cost is cost to the customer, is it not?
That's correct.
Okay,
The
so-
compliance costs are also
understand.
mandatory.
And that all impacts their bill, does it not?
That's correct.
Okay, and they want to know, so what's their total cost, regardless of how you classify these costs, I think is very important to the customer. Would you not agree?
Nice statement,
Would you
Mr.
not agree,
Panovich.
sir? Okay. You mentioned you became CEO in January 2011. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Have you testified before this commission as the CEO prior to today?
I have appeared before this commission associated with Vogel 3 and 4, but I have not testified.
Okay. When you appeared, you did not take questions from any of the interveners or staff. Why was that?
Mr. Chairman, I think that's beyond the scope.
I think it's relevant.
Well, I understand you think it's relevant.
Thank you,
asked
Mr.
a question, but I don't think it is, and I'm making an objection, which is that would have been something that could have been dealt with in the VCM 17 proceeding when Mr. Bowers appeared. It was part of the procedural scheduling order of this commission.
Sustained. Mr. Panovich, let's keep the questions on this rate case, docket number 42516, please.
I would like to, with your permission, sir, since we referenced the 2013 rate case in here, talk a little bit about that and see, what those points were. Then I want to compare that and what their key issues were compared to this one, with your permission.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask you to limit this intervener to 20 minutes total.
I object, Fonnie. That is totally unfair.
Mr. Chairman, he continues to fail in every hearing to follow our guidelines. He provokes the chairman. He provokes the witnesses. He throws the tone of this meeting into a much darker place, and I think we need to limit him to 20 minutes so that he will be a better steward of the minutes that he has.
Mr. Chairman, that is totally unfair. It is
Mr.
biased. and
Mr.
so on like
Panovich,
that.
listen to me, sir. Continue. I will decide when your time's up.
Thank you, sir.
continue right now.
Also,
Thank you, Commissioner Eccleston.
For the record, by the way, I will not be here tomorrow, or Wednesday, so just for today. So give me a little latitude. In the 2013 rate case, Ron Henson's testimony said he requested $482 million, which was a 6.1% increase, of which they received $466 million. Does that sound about right?
I'd have to look at the documents, but it sounds in the range, yes.
Okay. Also, they mentioned a key driver of that was they needed to invest a lot in capital expenditures, basically like $4 billion from 2010 to 2013. Is that about right? And the point I'm making is
Mr.
that...
Panovich, he doesn't have
Okay.
those numbers in front of
Point-
him.
I can show him if you need me to.
No, we don't do that. We want to be on this rate case that's in
We
front of
gotta
us.
compare because-
Then ask a question. Don't quote things. Ask a question.
One of the key points that came out of the 2013 rate case was that O&M expenses declined from 2010 to 2013, and they projected that they couldn't sustain this and it was going to get really accelerate, in the future. But it didn't accelerate, didn't it? Because basically from 2013 to 2019, your O&M expenditures continued to decline from 2013 levels, as your testimony said. Is that correct?
The O&M has declined. It's been one of the most transformational periods of our company's history when you think about what we've done to innovate our business and what we've done to reduce overall cost in the business.
And I commend you for that. I sincerely do. That's well done. Okay. But on the rate increase for 2013, they didn't need to really basically include O&M expenses when I increased a lot because it really didn't. A 2010 rate case, again, just...
Mr. Panovich?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
If you don't
I'll skip
address
it on.
what
Okay.
we're doing, I'm going to ask you
Okay.
to take your seat.
Okay, I'll go on. This rate case. Why is there...
Mr. Chairman, I have a request. I would like ongoing if we can, because I can stand up every time if I need to. I'd like to strike from the record his statements, which are not in the form of questions, so that they don't get confused with anything that's evidence in this record. He's not a witness, he's not sworn. He can't be a witness and sworn now because he's asking questions. So I would just ask that all of his statements unassociated with a question be stricken from the record.
They are associated with the question and just basically setting the context of the
Ask
questions.
the question to the witness, Mr. Panovich. I'll address Mr. Green's request
Thank you, sir.
whenever.
Okay. Why was the discrepancy in the rate case in 2019 versus 2013 and 2010, dollar-wise?
So Commissioners, I think I've addressed that. As we went through the period between 2013 through today, what we have before you, it's really focused on how is our business run, what have we done to improve the efficiency, and where are the dollars being allocated and spent. I think you can see by my testimony we have reduced our overall cost. We have provided a platform for our customers to interact with us in a different way. We've shut down 4,000 megawatts of generation facilities. We have also closed 131 local offices. Those were not necessarily contemplated in terms of the projection of costs going forward. The other aspect of when you look at 2013 through 2019, there's additional risk. And I think that's why we have agreed with staff and this commission to go through these rate plans that gave us a bandwidth of operations to allow us the flexibility and incentives to be as good as we can be. And I think that's why this commission is viewed in the industry as a stable regulatory environment that allows for the company to operate as efficiently as it can. Once we achieve those savings go directly back to those customers and are reset at the next rate case.
Is it fair to conclude that a key driving force for this rate increase is the capital expenditure programs that you said are necessary?
That's correct.
Okay, Keith. Also, on storm damage, you mentioned 450 over many years. Is there an average, like, how bad it was, in this period of time versus how it was before? Just dollar-wise. I know you...
So, Commissioners, when we appeared in previous rate cases, the staff and the commission approves a certain level of storm reserves or a storm account for us to reflect what our actual costs are going to be. Over these last 6 years, it's been unprecedented with the extreme weather that we've had. If you just look at Hurricane Michael by itself, it was $130 million of cost that the company incurred. We accrued roughly around $62 million that was reflected, $30 million that was reflected in storm restoration costs. So you can see it kind of outpaces what we actually accrued to.
So on average, is there average per year that you kind of allocate for storm damage?
Again, I'll defer to Mr. Perot in his testimony because he is directly testifying on that.
Okay. Do you have insurance for this?
We do have insurance.
How much does the insurance cover for that $450 million?
Again, I'll defer to Mr. Perot. He'll go into the details of our insurance coverage.
Okay. Well, is it reasonable to assume that insurance will cover part of it anyway?
It is, and I sit on the nuclear electric insurance liability. I'm actually the chairman. There are 3 mutuals that the utility industry uses for insurance coverage for extreme conditions, and there is a portion of the cost that's covered.
Okay. But storms are kind of common, though, right? That's not unusual.
Extreme storms are not that common. The last 3 years has been uncommon.
Okay. So we don't know the number yet. But okay. But it's possible that would reduce the need for recovering $450 million. That needs to be questioned with Mr. Perot, which I can do if we get to him today.
No, sir. I think you're incorrect. The $450 million is the net impact of those storms.
It's a net impact?
The $450 million that we're asking in front of this commission is the impact of those storms.
Before or after insurance?
It's the net.
So after insurance?
That's what I said.
Okay, because it didn't say in the testimony. It just said
It's the
450.
net, it's what's unrecovered.
I understand. And you mentioned you must comply with federal regulations and the cost and so on like that. Are any of those costs avoidable from the regulatory point of view? Or do you have to do it?
Mr. Prinovich, and I think the commission directs us to comply with all rules and regulations and laws that are promulgated by either the U.S. EPA or the state EPD, or the rules that govern our network as well.
Okay. You mentioned, page 3, the tax cut provided like $2.5 billion benefit for the customers. My question is, how much would your rate increase request be if there was no tax cut?
Mr. Prinovich, I'll defer to Mr. Perot and his panel.
Okay. Well, if the $2.5 billion benefit to customers, is it fair to say that the increase might be up to $2.5 billion?
Mr. Chairman, I think you said it for that question.
But I'm not going to be here probably when Mr. Perot testifies.
That's not my
I need to ask. It's in his testimony, the $2.5 billion benefit to the customer from the tax cut. My question is, if there was no tax cut, what would happen?
You said Mr. Perot would be here.
He doesn't. Okay, so he can't answer that question. Is that your response? Thank you, Mr. Green. Okay. Okay. Then also we said, just confirm, the O&M expenses were not the driving force. The driving force for the
Question, please.
is capital expenditures is the key issue in this
He's asked
hearing,
that question
right?
at least 3 times.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Expanding on your comment, the strategic issues now. That Georgia Power owes its customers an explanation. Does that include doing all that you can to control all major costs?
Mr. Prinovich, I think the commission recognizes we try to control all our costs and be efficient at what we do.
Okay. Does that also involve controlling all capital costs, capital expenditure costs?
That is correct.
Okay. It's a key strategy. How do you implement controlling your capital costs? What's the strategy for doing that?
It's needs-based. So when you look at our capital budgeting process, it's a needs-based capital budgeting process. What are the needs of the business? What are the requirements? What are the maintenance requirements of facilities? What are the new customers? The new customers that we've added, the 180,000, drove almost $650 million of capital requirements in the state. As we add new customers, there's new equipment and new facilities being built. So those are projections that are put into a budget approved by the Georgia Power Board and presented in front of this commission as our projections for the next 3 years.
Okay. So there's, if I understand, there's 2 components of this. One is the need, and then the other is the financial control of making that investment to minimize the cost of those capital expenditures. Is that correct?
Mr. Prinovich, when you look at a need, it is absolutely the least cost alternatives that we focus on in delivering the product and services to our customers. So it's always the focus of what we do is how to deliver the infrastructure or the maintenance of our facilities or the requirements of our business in the least cost manner.
I understand.
But at the same time, complying with all rules and regulations that drive some of these capital costs.
And that's the ideal, correct? That's what
That's
we all
correct.
strive for. Do you always achieve that? Do you fall short sometimes?
Sometimes we never fall short of our projections, but the projections do change in terms of what is required. Once we're into a project, there are escalations that might be incurred. Right now, you have wage rates going up in America on certain crafts that we have to start reflecting in some of our cost projections.
Okay. Mr. Perot mentioned on page 21, he said, in an environment with frequent rate increases, utilities often have little incentive to manage and reduce costs. My question is, do you have a strong incentive to manage and reduce cost of capital expenditures?
Yes,
Okay. Was that applied to Plant Vogtle?
this is not a case of addressing Plant Vogtle.
I understand, but it's a major capital
It's
project.
not a
It is a
case-
capital project. It shows that basically they have not controlled all of their costs regarding major capital expenditures. That's my question. And my question is that challenge that you face with Vogtle, are you experiencing that with any other of your major capital expenditures that you talked about needing for the next few years?
Mr. Prinovich, I think all the capital projections that we have in this case are presented to this commission. We go through an integrated resource plan that presents all the capital requirements associated with our generation facilities, as well as expansions of the network that ensures the resiliency of our resilient network for our customers. When you bring in the idea of a Plant Vogtle into this consideration, which is not part of this case, This commission has heard the testimony associated with what's driving the cost escalation of that plant. That is in a different proceeding. It's not in this case.
That is true, but it is an example of a major capital expenditure project that the company has undertaken that has ran into serious financial difficulties. Is that not true?
That is true. The challenges associated with Plant Vogtle have been presented in this case. We've had bankruptcy of one of the suppliers. We protected the customer. When you look at Vogtle and the projection of rate impact for the future, it's below what the original approved level was. However, again, this case is not about Plant Vogtle.
But it is about...
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to verify that we are on docket number 42516, Georgia Power's 2019 base rate case.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did the cross-examiner hear that?
I did, sir.
Thank you.
You mentioned that Georgia Power customers receive billions of benefits from their investment in the capital expenditure program over the past few years. Is that correct?
We've invested $8.7 billion since 2013 in our business. That's correct.
Did your customers get $8.7 billion worth of benefits for those investments?
Mr. Privilege, they have received resilient service from Georgia Power. They have received the responsiveness of our team in terms of storm restoration. They have had the best generating plant operations in the history of our company. So yes, I think our customers have received the benefit of those expenditures.
But it also, you do not address cost control on this. And basically, we have a lot of pressures increasing costs from a variety of sources. Is that not a key concern about the customers? Yes, sir.
I'm waiting for the question. Thank you.
Mentioned a key part of the benefits and the effectiveness of Georgia Power is the constructive regulatory policies with this commission. How do you define constructive regulatory policies?
It's consistent. When you look at the financial markets, one of the ideas that one of the measurements that they have is assessing the credit quality of this company is the commission direction and policies that is consistent and predictable. That gives us a credit rating that allows us to go to the capital markets and get debt for this business.
Okay. Would you not also agree that a major responsibility of electric utility regulation, specifically these regulators, is to protect the public from monopolistic pricing, since you are a monopoly?
Mr. Privilege, I think when you look back in the history of how this commission was formed, it was the recognition that the customers were best served when the commission oversaw a monopoly service. And actually, the role of the commission is defined by looking at fair and reasonable rates. It's to balance the needs of customers and allow the utility to earn a reasonable return on all the investments. That was part of the doctrine that was set for the Public Service Commission. And in fact, the legislation passed in 1922 changed the name to, instead of a Railroad Commission, to the Public Service Commission. And that was the directive that they gave them.
That's true. And also, doesn't Hope say that regulation does not guarantee net income for the utility? And it's a balancing of the needs between the customer and the company.
That's correct.
Okay, so it's this balance, right? So one of the key roles of the commission is to kind of watch out for the public interest so they're not penalized or suffer too much by monopolistic pricing. Because as some of the witnesses said, you don't have a choice where you buy your electricity. It has to be from Georgia Power. Is that not true?
Mr. Benovich.
Yes, sir.
You know that the legislature set up the Territorial Rights Act. It wouldn't, so that was a fact in 1973.
Okay.
Now, so that we'll all understand, and you will understand very clearly, 11:30, which is 12 minutes from now, your cross will end. You understand that?
Perfectly.
Good.
Thank you. Stipulations. A lot of the agreements that were passed, or the amounts, was a stipulation between the company and the staff. Is that correct? You had it with the IRP. You had it in the 2013 rate case. I think you had it in the 2010 rate case. Is that right?
Mr. President, I think the outcome of rate proceedings is to listen to all intervening parties. The commission staff works with the company and the other interveners to get a reasonable outcome for all involved.
But wasn't that true, though, that the final agreement was based with two parties getting together, the commission staff and the company? And they come up with a recommendation, and the other parties are excluded from that. Isn't that not correct?
For which proceeding, Mr. President?
Well, let's take the last
Mr.
one,
Pinovich,
the IRP, or the one before that, or the one before that.
For information purposes,
Yes, sir.
that's why we have a staff. The staff gets into the weeds of any and all rate cases. They present, if they have an agreement and they have interveners that sign off on a stipulation, and they present that to this commission, then the commission decides whether it wants to accept that or not. It's not done till it's done. And there's no there where you're trying to go.
But isn't it true the other parties are excluded from that process?
They've already had the opportunity for the process.
How so?
Well, public witnesses, our staff, I don't need to go any further with that.
Okay.
You know it as well as I do.
Okay.
I don't want to take up your time.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I also don't want the record to reflect what's not true. Georgia Power Company meets with reasonable parties who have
Reasonable parties. Are we
Present.
reasonable, sir?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Hold on. We're not going to get into this. We can't. The recorder can't record 3 conversations at one time. And I know Mr. Ponovich has some major questions in the last 9 minutes that he wants to use, and probably he wants to get through earlier so he can. Everybody would appreciate you giving them 3 or 4 more minutes on their lunchtime. Continue,
I'm not going to
Mr.
be here
Ponovich.
tomorrow. I think that's quite a gift. Maybe you can help me on this. On the looking at my power bill here, we have the one for the summer, which is $300, one for the spring, which is like $67. A key part of that bill are the riders and so on like that. So if it's appropriate, I would like to understand basically how do the environmental ECCI environmental rider come into effect and wind up on my power bill?
Mr. President, I'm going to defer to our rate design witness.
Who would that be?
Mr. Legg.
Okay.
And our financial witness, Mr. Furrow.
All right. Then let me give you an easy one. On the NCCR tariff, not getting into how it got there, Georgia Power had 70 lobbyists before the legislature and got it through. With it. My question is this. Now, wait a minute. It was
you wait.
Okay, I'm sorry.
not going to have that.
Okay. You tell me I only got like 5 minutes.
Well, you're using it wrong way. You're making a statement.
Okay,
and you're
fine.
not to make statements.
Okay, let me
here.
ask a question. The NCCR tariff was supposed to expire in 2016 when VOGA was supposed to come online, and it didn't. It's still there. My question is, are you willing to suspend the NCCR tariff now, since basically you said that you're concerned about the best interest of your customer, and it's 3 years late on this? Why should the customers keep paying for this?
Mr. President, I think in the VCM process, the commission hears the testimony directly associated with the costs associated with that. It's my understanding that the NCCR is capped at a $4.4 billion amount, which was equated into the NCCR. Any cost above that is not reflected in the NCCR. That is the amount that was originally approved by the commission in 2008 for going forward with this commission, 2009, I'm sorry. So the commission has set the target amount, and it is the amount that was originally approved.
It was a part of a legislative act.
That's correct.
But also, though, you have the authority, do you not, as CEO, to say, hey, we're really concerned about our customers. We know that a lot of the stuff that we're doing is
Ask
causing
your
hardship.
question.
Can you eliminate the NCCR tariff if you wanted to?
Mr.
We've gone through that here at
yes
this.
or a no?
You listen to me a minute now. We've gone through that here at this commission. I asked the power company several times ago. The law says they shall collect it. I said, you know, what about May? The law says they shall collect it. Look at the statute, Mr. Ponovich. I had to look at it, and I had to eat those words too. But it says shall. It didn't say may.
You were
Continue.
correct, Mr.
That question's old. Get
You
the
were-
next
you
one.
were correct.
Get your next one.
Mr. Perrott made a key point. He said the company makes prudent investments in capital expense for the benefit of customers, and customers in turn pay for the cost of the services. Okay. What do you mean by prudent investment?
Mr. Prnovich, when we look at costs associated with our business, everything we do is focused on delivery of excellent service and the consideration that this is going to have a benefit for our customers and an outcome that is positive for our customers associated with the investments that we make. If it means that we're investing in the resilient network, we're investing it to ensure that the lights do not go out.
Okay, well, in my final 5 minutes, let me quote the opinion from the Georgia Court of Appeals about prudency. What it said was, quote, this was coming from the old days with Vogel 1 and 2. This was penned out in 1990. The PSC noted that excessive or unreasonable costs could result from a decision that was prudent when made, but that the determining issue is not whether the decision to incur the cost was prudent, but who should bear such cost. Such expenditures represent an additional expense to the project, which is certainly more in the control of utility management than the ratepayer. Therefore, it is only appropriate that such excessive or unreasonable costs become the responsibility of the utility and not the ratepayer. That was from the Georgia Court of Appeals. I give you the citation if you need it. My question is that, could you comment on that? Is that ruling correct?
Mr. Chairman, not only does it have to do with Vogel, which we have all ruled is outside the scope of this proceeding. It's Vogel 1 and 2, actually. And the fact of the matter is, Mr. Bowers is neither a lawyer nor is he necessarily able to give legal advice. I would suggest, though, that if Mr. Prenovitz is asking, is the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court correct when they issue a ruling, I think the answer to that is obvious. And
Yes.
I don't think there needs to be any further comment on that.
And basically, the standard then is not whether it was prudent, but who should pay for it. Is that not correct? You don't need a legal opinion on that
Mr.
one.
Ponovich, sustained. We're not going there, Mr. Ponovich. Thank you. Prenovich, excuse me.
Prenovitz, sir.
I got it. Thank you.
Glad you do.
Got 2 minutes.
That's all I need. Going through the structure of the rate case, this was on page 16 or 17.
Thank you for getting back there.
Yeah, number 2. Dr. Weird, basically, he is, I want to make sure that, well, tell me what his testimony is. He's a consultant, right? Dr. Weird?
No, Dr. Vanderwide.
John Vanderwide, sorry. My mistake.
He's a cost of capital witness.
Okay, all right.
Hired by the company as an outside expert and recognized across the United States as an
Okay.
expert.
And he talked about business risk and financial risk, and basically business risk is, you know, the risk of you being heavily capital expenditure. Anyway, he said because you have more business risk, you should get a higher rate of return. You agree on that?
That's part of the contemplation that you have to put into consideration in the cost of capital. But I'm going to defer to Mr. Vanderwide as the expert that will go into his testimony.
Well, I would love to talk to him, but I'm not going to be here tomorrow. It's the second day of Rosh Hashanah. Shouldn't be here today either. Next one. Mr. Fetter, he's a former state regulator. His argument was that it was very important for the commission to kind of give you guys what you want so you'll be in good standing with the financial community. Is that correct, if I'm summarizing it?
That is not correct.
Okay, how would you state it?
Mr. Fetter is an expert on the credit quality of companies. He's appeared for numerous commissions. He is a past commissioner himself. He looks at what it takes to sustain a credit level that gives you access to the capital markets.
And he also showed basically that the trend for your credit ratings are going down. Right? It's got basically you're in the lower end of the investment grade, correct? And he said basically for the last 3 times it's gone down a notch each time. Is that correct?
It has gone down in the past, but with working with this commission and others, the recognition of the benefits of the tax Reform Act was also recognized earlier this year, and the customers received $330 million of additional refunds associated with that tax benefit. We'll see another $600 million of benefits in this case. And then going forward, the reduction in tax rates from 35 to 21% will be reflected in our rates.
Okay, but also the main thrust of his testimony is, hey, give Georgia Power what they want, and basically this will make their credit standing better than if you don't. Is that a fair statement?
No, sir, is not.
Okay, why is it not?
Because he is doing calculations associated with what does it take to sustain credit quality. Looking at fund flows, he looks at what the credit rating is, what is the access to capital markets. I appeared before FERC commissioners, and I remember one of the issues that we addressed in 2008 and 9 is having access to the capital markets when you have intense capital requirements. At that point in time, the credit targets were an A rating to be able to get to access to market. I actually saw where we didn't, on the short-term markets, didn't have access to capital markets. So it's important to sustain a certain level of credit quality to get to the capital markets.
I understand. But basically, if the company does things that cause them to have a lower rating, basically what he's saying is you have to give the company the credit rating, you know, what they want, so they're in good standing with the credit.
You got your final statement in, Mr. Prinovich.
I got
and
one
thank
more.
you. No,
One
sir,
more.
you don't.
Hey, wait.
This commission will stay in recess until 12:15, and the Georgia Association of Manufacturers will be up for first cross. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bowers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, commissioners.